Hello, class. Today I'm going over part 1 of chapter 13, advertising. So, what do you think of when you hear about the word advertising? Some of you might think about billboards, or you might think of those ads that play in between videos. You might think about product placements, whether they are on platforms like TikTok or if you see them in a traditional TV setting or movie. So, advertising takes a lot of different forms, but in general, when we talk about advertising, we're talking about a form of paid communication. That means that we know who is sponsoring it and it is being delivered with the idea that it will influence a particular audience. And what kind of communication is it? Well, they're promoting a product, a service, or an idea and trying to usually either sell you something or create awareness for a particular product, service, or idea. Now, whenever we look at advertising locations, like I said, there are a lot of different ways that advertisements are delivered. I've heard a joke before about the only place we don't have them is in our dreams, and even those are being taken over. So, when you think about where can you have an advertisement, well, you can have it pretty much anywhere. They've also had flash mobs that have gone to, for example, there was one recently where they went to a Broadway play and the people stood up in the audience and to talk about their particular view on environmentalism, and people thought it was part of the play. So you can have advertisements like that. You can have what are probably considered more traditional media, like magazines or newspapers, radio ads, TV or film ads, or like we said, product placements in them as well. Even when video games try to sell you different skins, I mean, that is something that is an advertisement. They're advertising those particular modifications and they want you to buy it. So, how do we get from the idea to have an advertisement to the finished product? Well, we need what's called a creative brief. And the creative brief is developed by an advertising team where they are pitching their marketing strategy to either other people in their firm or in the company where they work, or if they are part of a larger advertising firm, then they are pitching that to their clients. And a creative brief can be broken down into three basic parts: an objective statement, a support statement, and a discussion of tone. So, again, the parts of a creative brief, when we look at it, are an objective statement, support statements, and a discussion of tone. So, first part, objective statements. What is it? Well, this is where we are explaining the campaign's goals and we are relating them to whatever is currently happening. So we are saying that X is happening and we want Y to happen. For example, right now we have low sales for our dance event. And after 2 months of PR events and online social media advertising, we will sell at least 150 tickets per show. Now, technically, this kind of objective statement is actually across two different platforms. So it is a little more than what you would usually have. Normally, you would say maybe after 2 months of online social media advertising, we expect to sell 100 tickets per show or what have you. In this case, these are two different things that are happening together. Now, a support statement explains why your approach makes sense. So, support statements, just like it sounds, it supports the objective statement. So, what are we doing? And now we're explaining why we are doing it. So, why this is a good idea and why these people should pay you money to do it. So, a here's another example. Or if we were talking about the dance event, then we would say similar dance events increased early ticket sales by at least 10% with radio and TV interviews. Bam. So that would be one support statement. Another one could be previous small venue events averaged 50 tickets when we only advertised to dance studio clients by word of mouth and Eventbrite. Ticket sales increased when we added Facebook posts and one local news interview. So when we added the Facebook post, that would be another reason, a support statement for us to have more social media posts. Now, the tone or brand, this is where we explain how we're going to carry out the plan and how we will make the information more acceptable to our audience. So, whenever we're explaining how make the to make it more acceptable. For example, this is where we're giving a little more of the details. So you might include that information about the target audience, like who explain in general who our target market is, who our target audience is, and you're telling them like, okay, it's people between the ages of 18 and 40. And based on our research, we saw that most of them are going to Instagram. So we will make the majority of we're going to focus on advertising on Instagram. Now, the 5 W's and 1 H approach to a creative brief. Remember our 5 W's and 1 H: who, what, when, where, why, and how. So, starting with who, what are we talking about? Well, whenever we are looking at an advertising creative brief, we have two main audience members. We have, first of all, the people who hired us, so our client, and then we have the people who are receiving the messages or our target audience, so the people that we want to influence with our message. So we want to kind of bridge the gap between them and explain what and explain the client's message in a way the target audience is most likely to receive positively. Now, sometimes whenever you have an advertising campaign, it can mean that that it might be received negatively, but it can still be technically considered successful if the audience remembers who sent the message and what they were saying and are still possibly going to act on the information. Now, there are a lot of different message characteristics. Whenever you look at your target audience, again, remember we break down our audience into demographics, geographics, psychographics, and behaviors. So figure out what are their favored message characteristics. Are they more likely to react to something funny, something serious? And the development of your message, of course, will also vary based on what kind of product you are advertising and your client's wishes. So the what? Uh, how will you express your message? What are you going to say, basically? And what are you going to do to connect with your audience? So look at some creative ways to connect with your audience through messages that they already understand. For example, in the advertisement here, we can see that there's an ear of corn and it has a canned food key on it uh, that's kind of peeling the corn. So we can say that that we're connecting an idea of fresh food with canned food, which makes sense when we look at the message that yes, we also accept fresh food donations. So they are targeting an audience who traditionally would give canned goods to a food drive and telling them, hey, you can give fresh food too. So the when will your ad air? It might it's going to change depending on what kind of advertisement you're doing. So if it's an online ad, how many ads are you expecting to run? Is it going to be a banner ad? Is it going to be a video? If it's a video, how long will it be? So, how many seconds or minutes? And why are you choosing that length? Is it because it fits better, for example, with YouTube, where you can skip ads after they're a certain length? Or is it something where you want to make it kind of a mini cinematic feature and you want people to actually look it up online and want to watch it? Now, the where refers to both our medium and the audience's geography. So, where are they located? Are there any particular restrictions based on where the content is going to be shown, or based on the medium that you're using? So, are you going to need a different advertisement if you're running banner ads and running full page ads in a magazine? Are you going to need to consider the FCC whenever you have your ad on cable? You know, what think about where you're going to air these advertisements. So why? Why should your audience buy this product or service? Consider both rational appeals and emotional appeals. Now, a rational appeal is going to persuade using logic and reason. This is where we're looking at practical reasons why someone would want this product or this service. So, if you are advertising for a cleaning service, then you want to mention the reason of, not having the person hiring them not having to do it themselves. If we're talking about cars, usually it's going to be things like possibly a lower price point than competitors, or gas mileage if you're getting really good gas mileage, or if there are some updated safety features, that kind of thing. Now, emotional appeals, of course, we're looking at social connections or other psychological reasons someone might want that product or service. So that's stuff like whenever you see a beautiful person driving a car and they're in the sun and they look happy and everything, that's more of an emotional appeal than a rational appeal of gas mileage. Now, how does this relate to my target audience? You want to match your tone to the product or service, and of course, to those audience identifiers that we've discussed throughout this class. Make sure that you're matching those as well as what your client is anticipating you putting into the ads. So, is it something like a birthday party supply company where you need it to be kind of primary colors, bright, lighter hues of color on there? Or is it something that needs to be more serious, like a law firm commercial, which Of course, depending on the client and the lawyer, that could be a little less serious, as we've seen with different personal injury attorneys. Um, so remember to again keep your clients' ideas in mind, as well as what will relate best to your target audience when discussing this particular product or service. So, message formation. Let's talk about the steps to forming a campaign message. You need to, of course, research your product or service, identify your audience and its values, and develop a call to action. So, some questions for your client: what are their goals? What's their budget? What kind of timeline do they have? And what are their objectives regarding what are they going to do, or what are they expecting to happen at the end of this ad campaign? So, of course, as the person advertising it, you do want to research your product or service. This could mean looking at user reviews or also using the product or service yourself. And remember, when we're talking about advertising campaigns, you need to focus on one idea when you're developing them, and generally also one medium as well. So, again, use your own experiences, try the product or service. If it's something that tastes terrible but is really easy to make, like instant coffee, then advertise its quickness, not necessarily how terrible it tastes, because remember, you're trying to get people to buy it. Um, think about what its strengths and weaknesses are, and that can help you to develop your your main ideas in the campaign. And again, use user feedback. It can be a really great resource, even if it's something that hasn't been advertised yet. Then consider looking at focus group. So, getting a few people together and having them try it and see what they say about it. And also look at the competition and see how your product is different from it. And I mean, also how it's the same. So that way you know which parts to emphasize or de emphasize in a commercial. So identify your audience and its values. Now, whenever we're talking about audiences, of course, first we have our target market, which is the kind of umbrella target group that we're looking at, the general people who are being targeted by a particular communication program. Now, within the target market, you'll find the target audience, and they are a more concrete version of a target market. This is where you will also develop usually a persona for your target audience. You might have an example person, like who is our target audience member. Maybe they are a college woman in their 20s, um, in the College of Liberal Arts or whatever. So you can see who your average person is. um, so the target audience is going to be the more concrete, the more specific version of our overall target market. Now, our actual audience is going to be the group who actually responds to the ads. Now, often this will be the same group as our target audience. However, the actual audience can be a different group. It is possible for your ad to have other people who respond to it who are outside of your target audience, or quite possibly outside of the um, kind of narrower version of your target market. Now, when you're creating a call to action, we have two kinds of actions. We have immediate and delayed. Now, an immediate action is something where you want people to react right now. This could mean giving them a phone number to call, or if you're sending them an email with a link that they need to click right away so they can get discounts, or push notifications, those little pop ups that happen either inside of an app or because you allowed notifications from an app on your phone. Those are going to generally be more immediate action items where you intend for your audience to react immediately. Now, the delayed action is going to be the broader, kind of less of the you have limited time and you have to do this right now type of action. So that could be something like advertising a higher dollar item, like if you're in real estate and you want to get more clients. Well, people aren't going to go out and buy houses immediately necessarily. So you want to create more brand awareness of your particular firm, so people will look at your product, or well, so they'll look at your company whenever they are ready to go out and buy a house. Same thing if we're looking at buying a car. Usually they're going to create awareness for the product or for the brand name. And then whenever people are ready, then they will go out and get it. The only time you'll see more of an immediate action type of pitch is usually going to be those like year-end closeout where they say, once they're gone, that kind of thing. Another kind of delayed action would be changing audience habits. Now, this happens when, let's say, we have two grocery stores, and grocery store A has been in business in an area, grocery store B moves in. They want to get part of grocery store A's regular shoppers. So they will work to change their target audience's habits over time by usually seeing which items they're buying and providing discounts, giving them maybe um, an environment to shop in that they like a little more than at the other location, those kinds of things. And of course, we do want to focus on the desired outcomes. So when you're running an advertising campaign, or and whenever we're looking at that information, we want to see explain specifically what happens if this works. Well, let's say we wanted to increase sales, then we need to have a specific number of sales in mind, whether it's a dollar amount or a percentage, and then specify a time period. So it could be, let's say it's for a company that saw a slump last quarter. So we want to increase sales 10% by next fiscal quarter. That would be a specific amount of sales increased and a particular time period. So we have an ending point and we're starting it, at the beginning of the quarter. So here's an example. What kind of action would you expect from an injury attorney ad? Would you expect this to be delayed or immediate? And why do you think so? So, yeah, think about that for a second. Um, when we discussed it in class, a few people had mentioned the injury attorney ads as being more of a delayed reaction since people aren't necessarily going to have a reason to call an injury attorney every day. We also talked about how it could be an immediate kind of ad where they're, flashing the 800 number on the bottom of the screen and being very forceful in getting people to call them. So, arguments for both, but Yeah. Next time you pass one of those billboards, think about what kind of action they're looking to get from you as a target market member. All right. Up next, let's look at developing an advertising campaign.